Hi HMS modelers, this is Matt Fleming and I work at the Hydrologic Engineering Center, and in this video I'm going to continue talking about the new GIS tools that are available in HEC-HMS. And with this specific topic we're going to talk about using some tools to either reference or georeference existing basin model elements or import new elements from existing shapefiles. And so you don't have to use the GIS delineation tools in HMS. You can use existing shapefiles to create a nice georeference project if you want to. And so why do you want to georeference a project? Well, if you do have a georeference project, then you can load your background shapefiles. So you could have a shapefile of stream gauge locations, reach locations, or precipitation gauge locations. You can load that information in the basin model map to help others just get acquainted with the watershed and to quickly understand, well, this is how the watershed is configured, and then this is how those hydrologic elements are connected to create the basin model. So let's first talk about how to georeference those existing basin model elements. So in the figure on this slide, you see a very simple project. There is no GIS information. I have subbasin elements, reach element, and two junction elements, and those are represented by simple icons. So you could consider this a very simple stick figure type of watershed. And so those elements are connected together. And within this type of setup, if I tried to load a background shapefile, more than likely that background shapefile would not be displayed on top of these elements. I'd have to move those elements to the location where that shapefile is being displayed. So in this case, we're going to consider this basin model as a non-georeferenced or non-GIS basin model. So we have tools that are available from the GIS menu right here. So there's two that we're going to talk about in this video. The first one is the Georeference Existing Elements. So I have existing subbasins and reaches and junctions, reservoirs, you name it. Those elements are in the basin model, and then those elements have not been georeferenced. So you choose that menu option, and a wizard is going to open for you, which has really a three-step process. The first step is you choose the type of element that you're going to georeference. So in my example, I chose the subbasin element right here. The next step is you choose the shapefile that has the correct information in it. So you navigate to the location on your computer with that shapefile, and then once you choose the shapefile, the program will look at the attribute table in that shapefile. It's going to build a list of all the different attribute names or column headers, show those to you, and then you select the column or the attribute that contains the names for those subbasin or reach elements. Choose the Finish button, and then you're going to notice that the very first time you do this, there's going to be a menu option right here, or a dialog that says, well, the basin model doesn't have a defined coordinate system. And so you have a couple of options here where you could either choose the coordinate system either using a PRJ file or a projection file, or from a predetermined list of projections or coordinate systems, or you could choose the skip button right here. The skip button, if you press that, the program is going to use the projection associated with the shapefile that you're trying to use to georeference those subbasin or reach elements. Okay, as you're going through the process of georeferencing the elements, if you choose either subbasins or reaches first, it doesn't matter. But what you're going to notice in the basin model map is the program's going to move those element icons to the correct location based on the projection that's been selected. So in this figure right here, you notice the subbasin elements are located up here in the upper right, and then the reach and the junction elements, those are left behind in the old location. And so when I go through this georeference the existing elements a second time, you'll see that the program then moves all the remaining elements to the correct location. And so this is what you're going to get through at the end of that georeferencing process. So now those subbasins, those three subbasins, are represented with polygons, and then you can click on those polygons or the element icons just like you used to, and then that reach is now going to be represented with a polyline. And so you could either click on the reach polyline, or you could click on the reach in the Watershed Explorer. And then also what you're going to notice, the coordinates. So whenever you move your mouse around in the basin model map, those coordinates now reflect the coordinates of the projection that you used to georeference the basin model. All right, so now I'm going to walk through what we just talked about with a very simple project. So here's my project. So just like the figures that we saw, so we have 3 subbasin elements, 2 junction elements right here, and then a reach element that's connecting the 2 junctions. So the very first step that I'm going to follow, I'm going to go to the GIS menu and choose Georeference Existing Elements. The first element type that I'm going to georeference are the subbasin elements first, and then choose the next button right here. I'm going to choose my subbasin shapefile. And then there's only one attribute in this shapefile. The attribute is called name. It doesn't have to be called name, but within this attribute are the names of my 3 subbasins. The projection for my basin model has not been defined yet, so I'm going to go ahead and just choose the skip option right here. And since I choose the skip option, the program's going to use the projection of the shapefile for the basin model. Okay? And just like I mentioned a few minutes ago, so notice all my subbasins are located up here, and then the reach and the 2 junctions are located down here. So I'll go ahead and zoom in right up here to my subbasins. So you can see now those subbasin icons line up with these polygons right here. So now those subbasins have been georeferenced. If I want to check out what the projection is, I can go to the GIS menu and choose coordinate system right here. And then this is the new coordinate system for my basin model. Okay. All right, I'm going to run this tool one more time. GIS, Georeference Existing Elements. This time I'm going to choose reaches. I'm going to choose my reach shapefile, and then choose the attribute that has the name for that reach element, and there we go. What you might notice sometimes if you run through these steps on a different project, the junction elements might be drawn initially in the wrong location. The elements are still connected hydrologically, they just might be located incorrectly on top of those reach elements. So I just moved them around right here. If you want to check that the connectivity is still correct, you could right click on top of the basin model right here and choose resort elements hydrologically. Okay, and then as you click through the elements in the Watershed Explorer, you can just navigate from upstream to downstream. So everything has now been georeferenced. All right, so that was an existing project. Now let's talk about importing information from shapefiles. All right, so now you can start with an empty basin model. So there's no elements defined in this basin model. And there's a tool that will allow you to bring in GIS elements, either subbasins or reaches, from shapefiles. So the process is very similar to georeferencing those existing elements. So instead of georeferencing existing elements, we're going to bring in brand new elements. So it's a 3-step process. You choose either subbasins or reaches, you choose your GIS shapefile, and then you choose the attribute in the shapefile that has the name for those elements. And after you run through the import process, you're going to see a basin model that looks basically like this. You're going to see these subbasin elements in there and then a reach element. And so one thing to watch out for is, even though you see these GIS features, there's no connectivity. So that information does not live in the shapefile, or it's not importable at this time. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to manually link these elements together. And so you could link the subbasin elements to this reach element and then add a sync element, or you could add a junction element right here, link the two subbasins to that junction element, and then link the junction element to the reach element, and so on. And so the process to do that is you would add those elements and then use the right-click option on top of the element in the basin model map and choose Connect Downstream. And then you can use the cursor or the mouse cursor to select those downstream elements to establish the linkage from upstream to downstream. And then this would be the final product of that. So you'd have all of those elements in your basin model. They would be linked together using these very simple linkage lines here. And then you could verify that the elements are connected correctly by resorting them in the Watershed Explorer and just clicking from upstream to downstream to make sure that they're connected in the correct order. All right, so I'll walk through this example as well. So here's my empty basin model map. So I'm going to go to the GIS menu, choose Import Georeferenced Elements, Subbasin Elements right here. I'll choose my subbasin shapefile, hit select. There's the name attribute. I'm going to choose skip again. I'm going to use the projection for the shapefile as the projection for the basin model. There's my subbasin elements. I'm going to run through this process one more time and import that one reach element. Choose the attribute with the name information, and there it is. All right, so now I have my subbasins and reach element. They're not connected at this point. So if I choose this subbasin right here, you notice that the downstream element is set to none. All right, so if I want to start connecting these elements together, then I could add a junction right here. I'll call this one Big Run. And I'll add one more junction at the downstream end and call it Outlet. All right. So if I want to connect these, I simply right-click on top of the subbasin right here and choose Connect Downstream. Do the same thing for this subbasin, Connect Downstream, and then right-click on top of the junction downstream. And so then I'm going to do the same thing for the junction. I'm going to choose to Connect Downstream and click on this reach element right here. There we go. It's not going to draw a simple connector, the program will not, but you can verify the connectivity. So if you choose that junction element right here and look at downstream over here in the component editor, you see that that junction is now connected to the Mahoning Creek reach element right here. All right, I'm going to connect this subbasin element to the outlet, and then I'll move the outlet down here and then choose this reach element and then connect it to the outlet as well. All right, so I have my elements connected to one another. Oops. There we go. And then if I want to verify the connectivity, I can right-click on the basin model in the Watershed Explorer and choose Resort Elements hydrologically, and then just click from upstream to downstream. There we go. All right, so this video now shows you how to import or georeference existing elements, or you can also import elements from existing shapefiles that have either subbasin or reach elements defined.